Alright, this will be a preview on the thing I've been working on. Everything you're about to see is available on my GitHub. So let's start the server. This is a large language model plugged into a front end, and it's using a technique called tool former, which lets it invoke tools to do its job. So right now, this should be listening to my microphone and transcribing everything, so I'm surprised it's not writing that, but it might just be waiting for me to be done talking. There it is. So this is voice detected, and I'm working on text-to-speech, but let's just do a demo. So if I say 2 plus 2, then it should use the math tool to say 4. Computer, what is 10 times 12? So there's the voice activation part of it. Computer, turn on always on mode. So now it should transcribe what I'm saying into the chat directly instead of relying on an activation keyword. And it seems to have crashed, which is unfortunate. So if we say, what time is it? Then it should use the now tool to figure out what the time is, and then it will tell us. So the way this works is it gets a list of all the tools it's allowed to use, so the big prompt that it receives, it lists all the tools, gives some instructions, so it says don't use tools within tools, and it encourages it to use tools to double check its math. So it might know that 2 plus 2 is 4, but we want it to be using the math tool basically always. And we can define whatever tool we want. So right now this is a pretty generic approach. So I have a math tool, a time tool, and then I'm trying to get it to move windows around. So if I say move OBS to my monitor, then it calls the snap tool and it calls main monitor as the parameter, which is correct, but some glitches or the Windows stuff is finicky. Computer, move Spotify to my main monitor. Let's see if that works. So it disappeared off my second monitor, and there it is. And it's supposed to work like move Spotify to the right. And that should work. Right now this, so that moved it to the wrong monitor, but it moved it. It's very primitive right now, but it's all running locally. So the voice detection, the large language model itself, and the soon-to-be text-to-speech, that's not quite plugged in yet, but there is, I found some decent text-to-speech stuff to run. So it's basically pushing the limits of what my card can do, but there is a bunch of neat stuff that loads the models more or less piecewise and does inference that way so that you can load, I believe the thing is that you can load models bigger than your card, and I'm just not sure on the math on if I'm actually using that or what's going on. But this is built into a few parts. So there's the main, everything's using WebSockets, the front end is built with Svelte, and then that communicates with this main server. And then there's the text model is actually running on a different process, just because when you're hot reloading the main server, it takes like 30 seconds to reload the entire text model. So if I make a change to the math tool and add an example or something, then we don't want to have to move the text model out of the GPU and then have to load it back in. So that's why the main server is separate from the process actually running the model, and that's all just communicating with WebSockets, and there's not any authentication or anything really. So all these tools are dynamically discovered in this folder, and it builds this prompt dynamically based on what tools it has discovered. And I'm still experimenting with different models to pick which ones play well with the prompts, and that's inside the main text.py file. So I've tried the Eleuther AI Pythia one has done well. I tried the Blooms one, and it was not doing as hot as this one. So this is 7 billion parameters, more or less, and I think the math is that this is loaded at float 16 precision, so that's should 14 gigs in the GPU, but that's not what I'm seeing, so my math is wrong somewhere. There's optimizations and crap that I don't really know what's going on. But this is working more or less, so hi there, and it will respond. So we can look at the main process. It's, where is it? So we said hi there, and then it will predict that, and it will check if a tool was used, and if a tool was used, then that means that it stops generating at the arrow. So when it gets, the assistant will predict up to here, and then it's meant to stop, and it will discover what tool was tried to be used and get the parameters for it, and then evaluate that and give it the response, and then the AI will use that to build its final answer. So in theory, you can hide this as a markdown syntax or something. It's, I haven't gotten that far yet, but it's nice to see when it invokes the tools just to get an idea on what the behavior is. And right now it's doing pretty decently on the examples that I've given it. So if I say what time is it, then it knows how to do that. But if I say how many days are there in January 2023, then it's failed pretty hard on that one. And I don't think it actually has the tools to answer that anyways, except for just guessing and whatever it's been trained on. So it has a weekday tool as well. So one of the examples I did give it was what day of the week is it, so it can use the now function and then call weekday on this result, so kind of chaining them together. It has an example of that somewhere. What day of the week is today? A Friday, so that was the example I gave it. So if we go to the main, you can say switch to voice to always on mode. What day of the week is it today? So let's see. It said the correct date, and then I called the function with the date and said Saturday. So if I say, what day of the week is it tomorrow? And of course this was all garbled because I was talking out loud, but that's kind of the fun in working with these tools. So today's date is the 12th, and it said that is a Saturday, which is not the date of tomorrow. So I think I gave an example on just adding one to the day. And of course that would be kind of complicated. If it's the last day of the month, I would have to know to roll over, so that means it has to know how many days are in the month. But it's a better model would be better, so I think it just called. So it just moved the VS Code window away. See, it's invoking the wrong tools when not being asked, and that's another problem. But the so the snap tool itself is just implemented with some crappy fuzzy matching on the process names, and then the locations that it wants to move it to. They're basically hard-coded, but this could be a candidate for actually using the model itself to take this parameter. So Chrome left, we can give it the list of processes and say which of these matches this the best, and then given the description left, what coordinates on the monitor should that be transformed to. So this output right now is very hard-coded, but it's an opportunity to chain the model, and I think that's the idea behind LangChain, which is a different technique than this one. This one's tool former, where you have this kind of arrow stuff. I don't know much about LangChain or toolformer really. I just saw the paper and thought it was interesting, so I gave it a try. And it's working well so far. I really like the loading triangle thing. So that's with WebGL, if we look at the front end. And then we have the components, our default view. So if we're not connected, then we load the shader component, and that you can set up your vertex and fragment shaders, which was a blast remembering our graphics programming course. So I'm glad I got to do some of that again. And that's what I've been working on. I hope you found it interesting.